To say I'm in a good mood to start this third week video would be an understatement. These videos are a challenge because I haven't performed for a long time. I was right in the middle of doing a great presentation to you, and as you'll notice in the background, I am not in the same place I usually record from. That is because I am being super grandpa this week and taking care of my teenage grandson in Topeka. Well, in the middle of the video, the Great Dane dog that I also am getting to take care of walked over and stuck his head in the video. If he does it again this time, we will just give him a supporting cast role and continue on. That's one of the reasons I'm sitting here laughing. I expect him to come over any moment, either he or his friend, the little Boston Bull Terrier that is sitting to the right of me. Now, let's go ahead and see if we can do this without Animal House becoming part of my presentation, and I will continue. You see, there's another reason I really enjoyed this week. You made me think, you challenged me, and I love to have that happen in my classes. In the last 2 weeks, I have learned so much from you. For example, I had never heard of Satan being a music director in heaven. It is in Ezekiel 28:13. The person that told me that wants to know if anyone else had ever heard that in church. I went on the internet and researched it, and trust me, it is a very controversial subject. I think you might enjoy looking that one up. I told one of you about the radio station in Del Rio, Texas, because its history in itself is hilarious. You might want to look up the Del Rio radio station. You see, the broadcasting was done from Del Rio, but the tower was in Mexico, so they could have as tall a tower as they wanted, and they could broadcast all over the world. Next, some of you have talked to me about the diversity of the groups. This is the Italian rock group, which was never mentioned very much, but is a very potent group in this thing. Yes, that is true. They sang from the heart. That was what the magazine article said at the time, because there were so many of the great Italian performers in the 1950s, 1960s. Jumping around. You can jump all over the book you want to. Many of you have apologized to me for that. Let me tell you this, that is the greatest compliment you can give a textbook. Many textbooks are so boring it's hard for you to get from one page to the other. It is exciting that we have a textbook that you can jump around. I've been doing the same thing. I jump all over the place. You see, each of us have our own taste. I'm going to tell you something now that I hope does not make me seem older than dirt. But I am one of the silent generation. So I have been reliving my past, and as we go on in this class, each of you are going to step into your time zone and think, oh yes, I remember when I liked that. So when you tell me that the silent generation or the beginners of rock and roll were doing this or that for a noble reason, I sometimes smile because, yes, a lot of nobility came out of it, but I think it was just a lot of fun too. Next, your background stories that you have talked about of the composers, of the performers, of the artists. Yes, they had some interesting background stories which enhanced the era of rock and roll. Now this week we're going to go on to a whole new exciting divergent channel, and that is the Beatles are coming to America. You will get to talk about the the English invasion. The English invasion was very controversial, and one of the controversies was, well, their hair is so long. I always smiled about that, because their hair was like a long page boy. It was not long at all by any standards. Next, you will talk about girl groups. Now, why have we waited until now to talk about girl groups? Well, one, this is the time period they became established. Why did we have to wait this long in music history or music appreciation to talk about girl groups? Because, as I've told many of my classes in the past, I studied music in the 50s and 60s, and I don't think girls were invented yet. We never discussed girl performers. We never discussed girl composers. Mendelssohn's sister was as good a composer as he was, and he is considered a great composer. There is a woman called Hildegard de Bingen who was a medieval composer. We know more about her than almost any composer. She was a great composer. She is probably one of the few composers who has ever been nominated for sainthood and made it, and yet she was never mentioned. So this is the diversity we were talking about earlier, only now we're talking about diversity of other countries. We're talking about diversity of men and women. This is an exciting time. So for this week, what you're going to do for me is this. You're going to write a paper on either the Beatles or girl groups. Take your choice. Isn't that nice? Girl groups or the Beatles. Take your choice. Then on the forum, you're going to discuss, was the British invasion influence overrated? Now you can go any way you want on that. I don't care. I just really enjoy reading your comments. And the second thing is, did the Beatles and girl groups have anything in common at this time other than their haircuts? So that is what your assignment is this week. First, you're going to do your blog. Well, you're going to do your blog last if you do it in my world. Okay, you're going to do the forum and tell me what you think. Then you're going to write your papers. And then you're going to do the blog. So until next week at this same time, this is Dennis saying goodbye. Tune in again next week for this same message. Goodbye.